Well, this is the first talk of the Aerospace Village, and this will be in English. And we are really happy to have here Steve. Steve, we are really happy to have you here. I really want to give you my welcome to you to the Patagon Space here in Ekoparty. This is the first talk and in our second year. I really want to say that I met Steve in the village, in Aerospace Village, from DEFCON. Steve is from there. I'm really happy to invite him about 2 months ago. So everything went fine, and we have him here. So, Steve, the scenario is yours. Take the ship. Do your magic.
Gracias. Bear with me for a moment. Un momento. Por favor, ten paciencia conmigo. So, buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Steve. Yo estoy contento de estar aquí hoy. That is the most I can do. Thank you. Thank you for bearing with me. I don't want to abuse your language, so I appreciate that you all can understand my language and your own. I'm not that smart, so but thank you. I really appreciate the time today. Ekoparty for putting on this event. I've seen parts of it in between working over the past couple of days, and then Wani for taking the time to reach out and getting a chance to talk and meet and learn about Patagon Aerospace and the work that you're doing. I think that's awesome. I love talking to hackers. That's the title of my talk. You all are the folks that I enjoy working with the most. I want to be like you. I'm not good at the technical side, but hopefully the things that you'll see, that you'll hear me talk about, will show you the variety of things that are going on of getting government and industry to talk to hackers more, and some of the work that I get to be a part of. So I'm really happy with that, and I'm really glad to be able to share that with you today. So I'll jump right into it. I'll talk for just a little bit, but I'll save plenty of time for questions. And I'm happy to, get your thoughts and hear from you all at the end. So with that, we talk about aviation and aerospace operations and air travel, and there's a lot that goes into that. And overall, there's a great safety record. There's tons of things going on, long history that's made air travel so safe for folks. And that's the work that people have done over the years. And I used to be a pilot, so I can appreciate that quite a bit. But now things are changing. We're starting to connect systems, cybersecurity, what you all are talking about during this entire conference. That's adding a whole new element. So when you look at what's going on out there, this is the ecosystem. This is everything that's happening. And you can see it's incredibly complex, not just the airplanes, but the airports, the communications, the navigation, space-based systems, space travel, all of those things, and then all the pieces and parts that go into it. So the concern is the risks are growing. The more we connect networks, the more we connect these already complex systems, we are continuing to connect them faster than we can make them secure. And that's the problem. So how do we solve that problem when you don't have a lot of people with the skills? Nobody has enough money to do all the things that need to be done. So how do you get after it, and how do you start fixing things? And that's what I want to focus on today, that the changes that are occurring, the attitudes of government and industry, and their willingness to talk with hackers, and for hackers being willing to talk with government and industry. And so that's what I'll focus on today. A little bit of background about myself. Steve Luczynski, as introduced up front. I worked in currently work at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency here in the United States. I'm not speaking as a representative today. I'm here on my own time. Previously, I worked in the private sector as a Chief Information Security Officer at a government contractor. And before that, I had a career in the Air Force. And that's where I got into cybersecurity, but a majority of my career was airplanes. I was a fighter pilot. On the left side, that's an F-15, that's me. And on the right side, that's an F-22. I had a great time getting to fly, travel around. And the thing that I enjoy most talking on this topic is I get to talk about flying and I get to talk about cybersecurity. So those are the two things that I really enjoy these days, and any chance I can to talk about it. So what I've seen over time, at the end of my time in the military, I spent a few years at the Pentagon. And I remember the opportunities of what I saw and what was happening in the aviation and cybersecurity world. I went to DEF CON 22 in 2014. That was right after Hugo Tesso was talking about some hacking things he had found. Another hacker shortly after that had been talking about and making claims about what he had done on an aircraft. And at DEF CON, there was a great talk about what could and could not happen. So the attention of what was going on in the hacker community was starting to focus on these issues. And I had the opportunity, because of where I worked in the Pentagon, to be involved with the policy side of things in the Department of Defense. But also what it gave me the opportunity to see was not only that hackers were talking about it and that the government and the military was starting to talk about it, but the industry side was starting to talk about it. This is a report, and there's a link at the bottom there if you want to get a copy of it and read it. My friend Pete Cooper wrote this report for the Atlantic Council, which is a think tank here in Washington, D.C., nearby where I live. And that was the first time that industry had published a report that started talking about aviation cybersecurity, all that was going on, all the concerns and all the different ways that they needed to be addressed. And I was able to help contribute to that report. And we saw that it got lots of attention. People understood that we needed to talk about this. We needed to get out there and start addressing these issues and having all these stakeholders come together to start working on these problems. And that work inspired the things that we did follow on. And so what we saw from a hacker mindset was there wasn't enough happening of getting government, industry, and the hacker community to start talking with each other. Even government and industry wasn't going great, and I saw that from my time working in government. But just the fact that, how do we get them all to come together? And there's a group that you all may have heard of. They're called I Am the Cavalry. And they have looked at things like car hacking and car security, maritime security, biomedical devices, and the security of those things. And how do you bring people together to start addressing these problems? No money, just volunteers that are smart on the technical side, on the government side, the policy side, to get folks together to talk. And so they have been a part of the community for some time. They're definitely, they participate a lot in B-Sides Las Vegas, if you've ever been there, also on the DEF CON side of things. And for those of you who've been to DEF CON, you've seen the villages. And for those of you who haven't, DEF CON, giant conference, lots and lots of people every August in Las Vegas. And parts of DEF CON, you can go hear people talk about a lot of different things. But the villages are where you can specialize if you want to spend your entire time at the conference learning about car hacking or learning about biomedical devices and security. That is where the villages have set up, and they're starting to grow industrial control systems, voting machines, just all these areas where you can specialize. And that's what gave us the idea to create the Aviation Village. So the first time that we had the Aviation Village was back in 2019. Here's some pictures. And you can see we had space on the floor there at DEF CON, and we set up in the upper right corner, one of the companies that's a good partner of ours, Pen Test Partners, and you're going to hear from Ken Monroe right after me. They brought in some gear, and they were able to show and let people get hands-on, understand how aircraft systems come together, how they work. In the bottom right corner, that's Patrick Kiley in the black shirt who's facing the camera. And off to the left side of that picture is the cockpit of a general aviation aircraft. and where he had found a vulnerability in a CAN bus system. And he had worked with the Department of Homeland Security and the vendor through his company, Rapid7, to do a responsible disclosure through VDP. And then another activity that was going on at the same time right nearby is that there was a bug bounty for an F-15 fighter maintenance system. So these are the types of things that we were able to bring together. This was absolutely all volunteers from 9 months from the time that somebody had the good idea, hey, let's set this up, let's join DEF CON. We're able to bring in military, government, industry, hackers to come in and do talks, to show the research they had been doing and be able to engage with that audience. And it was a great success. We had lots of good feedback from folks. And what that led to is follow-on events. So like I talked about, we wanted government and industry to start talking to each other more and with hackers. Well, right after DEF CON, that's the Boeing plant up in Washington State here in the United States. And that's a variety of folks from DEF CON and the Aviation Village at the time who went out, got a tour, and Boeing was standing up what they call their tech council. And so now we have folks who participate talking industry and hackers about what are the concerns, what are the issues. So we built that relationship. Another conference that you may have heard of, RSA, that happens in San Francisco, February and March of every year. But we were there, and while we're there, we're called the Sandbox. So they use that name Sandbox, but the same concept. We have, you can see right in the middle picture at the bottom, Pen Test Partners built an Airbus cockpit simulator. They brought that out. Boeing brought out an electronic flight bag. And so this is where we're able to talk to a different audience about the things that are going on in the industry, what's going on, what are the cybersecurity concerns, thinking about aviation and space operations, as well as presentations. It was good. That's the director of CISA at the time, Chris Krebs, in that top right picture. So getting to engage with these different folks and getting them to be aware of what hackers are doing from a very simple level and continuing to grow those relationships. That work led to follow-on. Of course, you know, with the pandemic and everybody locked down and virtual conferences, we did the same thing, DEF CON last year. In that upper left corner, we had a whole range of virtual presentations. And this one in particular, that's Pam Melroy. She's a former NASA astronaut, 2-time space shuttle commander, and 2 trips up to the International Space Station. We have a YouTube page where you can see her talk and all the other ones that we've given. And hers was great. She was talking about adding internet to the space station and how do you do cybersecurity on the space shuttle. So it was great to get her perspective. We've also, in our village, been hosting the Hack-A-Sat competition that's being put on by the Air Force and the Space Force as another way to give hackers a really special capture the flag event that's based on space systems and how it's continuing to grow and give challenges. They're going to do their second Hack-A-Sat. It's happening right now. So they had the preliminary rounds and they're going to have the finals coming up here in December. So you'll be able to watch that online. But at the same time that we've been doing these things in the village, what we're seeing is across government and industry, more effort, more energy is going into this. The ACI is the Aviation Cyber Initiative, and that's an agreement and work being done within the US government between the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Defense, and the FAA. And so it's good to see that they're coming together working. They have also built a community of interest of folks outside of government, so hackers can come in and they can participate in quarterly events, hear speakers, and join their activities. Also, we've seen the World Economic Forum. They are publishing more and more about cyber resiliency and concerns in the aviation sector. Some other events that have been happening in the United States, Hack the Airport, multi-day event sponsored by Women in Cybersecurity. So these things are starting to grow, not because of us, but at the same time. And so what we like is that we're able to help connect and bring people in and support these different events, which is why I was so happy to learn about what Wani started with the Patagon Aerospace, and then being invited to this event. So a lot of these things are US focused. We have within the village, we're not just US based. We have a lot of US members, but we also have folks in the UK, in Japan, and I hope you all decide that if you want to join our efforts, we're happy to have you. But it's good to see how these things are continuing to grow. And so what that allowed us to do is we've been involved in other events, especially while it's been virtual so much. AIAA, if you're familiar with that, they do a lot of academic work. So we're speaking at events. Matter of fact, in a couple of weeks, I'll be out in Las Vegas speaking at one of their events. In the United States, there's an event called Gray Hat. It's also the Texas Cyber Summit. So you may have heard either one of those names. Blacks in Cyber, another event that's been growing. So these smaller events are continuing to happen, and we're able to support those, as well as being back at RSA and at DEF CON last year. RSA was all virtual, but DEF CON was great in the sense that it was both virtual and in person. So again, that allows, if you can travel, you can go there in person now, or I'm hoping that they'll continue doing the virtual component. So if you can't travel, you can still participate. So like I mentioned, what we're seeing is this overall change of what we've been able to do as a village, but the overall change in attitude where initially government and industry, they barely would talk to each other. That's gotten much better. But what's really great to see is how they're starting to talk to hackers more. They're willing to engage, they're willing to bring in those different perspectives because they know you have the skills, you have a different way of thinking, a different way to solve problems and to get after and fix things. So it's really nice. We continue to get invitations to join. The CAA is over in London. They are the UK's version of the United States and the FAA that deals with flight safety and things of that nature. And so from an international perspective, continuing to engage with those organizations. AIAA, again, speaking events coming up. We're already planning for RSA. That's coming up next February. So if that's an event that you go to, please come by and see us. And of course, we're already thinking about DEF CON. So even though that's not until next August, we're already planning because we're glad that we're going to be fully back in person. We want to make sure we're bringing in the right content, the right activities. And because of the work that's been happening, because of these changing attitudes and the willingness to come in, we've got folks, we had a class last year about AirInc 429 that had lots of attendance. We're going to bring that back. I think Boeing is considering bringing back their electronic flight bag and letting people learn more about those systems. The folks from the Space Force and the Hackasat, they are bringing in flat satellites. So you can get in there and you can learn how those work. We're also talking to one of the US airlines that wants to do more work with the village. They want to bring folks in, the security researchers and the hackers, to help them find vulnerabilities, to help make their systems more secure. So again, the benefit of all these things is that it continues to grow, and we're seeing that happen. And DEF CON's a great place where that's, bringing all these folks together, and the success that's happening there for, not just US, but again, from that international perspective of bringing folks in. So with that, I said I wouldn't talk too long. I wanted to give time for questions, but I want to make sure that you all know that's my contact information on Twitter, my LinkedIn, my email, if you want to talk to me. But also, please, if you want to join our efforts, and we are happy, you can join as much as you want. You can join as little as you want. It's however much time that you want to give. But please follow us on Twitter. We're also on LinkedIn. On Discord, you can get involved in the conversation. You can see the things that we're putting out and different events that we're planning for, because we want to keep doing things like this. We want to keep joining and helping you all. And I'm looking forward to watching Patagon Aerospace grow and where we can continue to support those efforts. That's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we're doing the things that you all in the hacker community want us to do. So with that, gracias por dejarme unirme a ti. Over to you, Wani.
Okay, Steve. Well, thank you so much for this talk. It was great to have this introduction for the following talks that we're going to have with the guys. So I really appreciate this first contact with the Aerospace Village. So I really want to keep in contact, and I really feel that this is like the first thing from a lot of things that are going to come in the next future. So thank you. I'm just looking around if we have any talk here. Any questions? Sorry. No, it seems that everything's okay. So, well, that's it. Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
Well, let's see you.
Yes. Thanks so much.